At Fidei.email, we believe in protecting your privacy and supporting your faith. Fidei.email offers peace of mind with features like end-to-end encryption and secure communications tools. Your data stays private and your values remain intact. Choose an email provider that understands what matters to you. Make the switch to Fidei.email today.
You might be aware that in the UK, starting in the 19th century, and maybe a little before that, the British Crown started lightening up on Catholics. After a couple hundred years of suppressing Catholics publicly, persecuting in some of the most grotesque ways imaginable. After a couple hundred years of that, the English Crown started lightening up, allowing Catholics to worship and things like that, and eventually allowing Catholics to come out and worship and even hold positions in Parliament, although they passed laws to ensure that no Catholic could be king and hold certain positions in the English United Kingdom's system. But they could become members of Parliament. There are Catholics in the House of Lords, as far as I've heard. That might be changing for the better, actually. I don't know why, other than maybe somebody going and saying, well, it's the 21st century. Your fears of the Catholic Church forcing England back into being a Catholic country and doing the Protestant revolt is a little unfounded. But they're changing that. They're starting to change those things. There has been talk, for example, of removing the prohibition for monarchs to be Catholic again. Because it's the 21st century, we're pretty far removed from the Anglican revolt. There's not exactly any threat of the Catholic Church forcing the population to become Catholic again. But also people are noticing in England, one of the fastest growing religions in the country is Catholicism. Don't know why that's happening in the UK. If you're in the UK watching this, let me know, why is it that Catholicism seems to be growing? Is it just the absolute state of the Anglican Church, that the Anglican Communion is a hot mess right now, to put in common parlance, and that's why people are becoming Catholic? I could see that as a reason. But due to the state of the Catholic Church itself, I add a mystery as to why this is happening. But all that is happening in that kind of context. And the secular media is reporting on this themselves. So we go to the BBC for a story that I, again, would have reported on for you a few days ago, but the news in the last week has been kind of crazy. So with the headline, new law to lift ban on Catholics in Kirk Roll. This is coming out of Scotland. That's how you can tell from Kirk Roll. We're talking here about upper echelons of the Scottish government. This is a good news story because it means Catholics that the freedom of the church is being respected for the church to do its work in the world. And that would include influencing secular government and running it in a way commensurate with our values. Even that does not mean imposing Catholicism on people, but you want people with their moral compass correct to have these positions. And I don't know anything about this particular person, but this is Lady Alicia Giolini, who will become the first practicing Catholic to hold the position of Lord High Commissioner of the Church of Scotland, if it should pass, the legislation should pass. She's a practicing Catholic holding a position adjacent to the Church of Scotland. I don't know how that works in terms of her soul, but a Catholic is being allowed to hold an incredibly influential position in government in Scotland. That's not a bad thing. It means that they're getting rid of their antiquated anti-Catholic laws in the United Kingdom more broadly. Here are the details. Quote, a new bill lifting the ban on Catholics becoming the King's representative at the Church of Scotland's annual assembly has been introduced at the House of Commons. Lady Alicia Giolini, KC, has been given the post of Lord High Commissioner of the Church's 2025 General Assembly. However, the former Lord Advocate is a practicing Catholic and legally prohibited from holding the position under the laws written in the 19th century. The Church of Scotland Lord High Commissioner Act 2025 would revoke that legislation and, quote, make provision for persons of the Roman Catholic faith to hold the role. The General Assembly has met almost every year since the Protestant Reformation of 1560. It meets to make laws, set agendas for the Kirk. The Lord High Commissioner acts as a sovereign's representative at the event and delivers the opening and closing speeches. The role is usually held by a prominent member of Scottish society, including King Charles himself in 2000. However, a provision in the Roman Catholic Relief Act of 1829, that's the law that lightened up on Catholics, meant those of the Catholic faith were still barred from the position. The act allowed Catholics in the United Kingdom to retain their faith while serving in Parliament and higher office, but it made an omission for the position of Lord High Commissioner, as well as a few other positions. The new bill proposed by Labour MP Pat McFadden will remove that provision in time for Lady Angelini to take up the job in May. The Cabinet Office described her appointment as a significant gesture of unity, goodwill, and collaboration between the Kirk and the Catholic Church in Scotland. Lady Angelini, who was born in Glasgow's Govan to a family of Irish Catholic descent, served as Solicitor General under Jack McConnell between 2001 and 2006. She was later Lord Advocate from 2007 to 2011, when she was succeeded by Lord Mulholland. She described accepting the position as Lord High Commissioner as a great honor after being appointed to the role in December. End quote. I don't see that as a bad thing. More freedom for Catholics in the world to do what we should do, which is to use our values to help make society a better place. Even if that just means essentially making non-controversial policy decisions as elected officials and stopping some evil ones from happening. Now, I say that knowing full well that Catholics in government defend some pretty heinous things. Even our vice president defends some pretty heinous things on the life issue. The super duper Catholic, devout Catholic, now stonecutter Joe Biden is the counterexample to everything I just said. I understand that. Catholics in the United States are pretty bad about this, but as are Catholics in Ireland and Catholics in Scotland and elsewhere who hold positions in government. Our co-religionists in the UK have taken some pretty heinous positions on other things. But that does not mean that it's a bad thing for Catholics to be involved in those government positions. It's a good thing that those barriers are being removed. Joe Blogg says, well, every Scottish migrant to the USA in the 1700s is likely to be Catholic since the Crown and the Protestant clans removed them at a large scale because they had the temerity to resist evil Reformation. Yes. A lot of them are, if they're keeping their faith. Remember, if they got here in the 1700s, their Scottish identity is nothing more than a footnote, right? For most of them. They're mostly Americans and they believe all manner of different things. Let's see if these Catholic politicians fight Moloch. Right. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Is it's good that Catholics can have these positions, but they better be Catholics about it. Maybe the church is liked among the countries because the church is conforming to world values. That's the other side of this. Synodality demands that we go along to get along. This opening the windows of the church to the world. You know, Cardinal George of Chicago, before he passed away, kind of had a take on Vatican II that basically said that Vatican II led directly to secularization of the church. This opening the windows of the church to the world stuff, tried to dialogue and evangelize the world in a new way that made us more listening and dynamic to the changing world, led to the secularization of the church. And that might be one of the things. David Wilson says, parts of Scotland has deeper anti-Catholicism than Northern Ireland. Not joking, so this is progress. See, that's what I like to see from people in the know. I don't know that much about Scotland. I'm not that surprised. If you look at Scotland's history of the Reformation, that's not that surprising. They went all in, just like the UK did, or England did. But it's not bad news when Catholics have in these places that still have these weird Reformation era laws are allowed to have the freedom that the church expects us to have. Chipone says Catholics like Biden and Pelosi. Hope not. That's kind of the flip side of this. But we'll see. We shall see. So we'll monitor the situation. I do like to report on things that come from the UK sometimes because it's just interesting things happen there. All right, folks. If there's any final thoughts, get them into the comments. I'm very curious what you think about this story today. And because the political landscape is changing, it very much is. You're seeing the U.S.'s role internationally changing. And that has been happening for a long time, but it's now American leadership now has that understanding of things and are seemingly just embracing it, leaning into it. But at the same time, that's going to have a rippling effect everywhere else, including the relationship of the church to the secular authorities. That's going to change as well. It's going to be inevitable. How quickly the church embraces that, we don't know. And those are the kind of things that are going to loom over the next conclave. Is the Catholic Charity story and the implications of it, including the role of the church with the secular governments. There have already been some moves behind the scenes for the church to start trying to get funds from other secular governments in Europe to do their work, mostly in Europe. So we shall see. All of these have implications. But let me know what you all think about this in the comments. Yeah, let me know what you think about all this in the comments, please. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly does help. And remember to pray for everybody we spoke about today. We're not here to stir up your ill feelings about any of these public Catholics. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.